Seoul's opening of its doors to the world. Impact of streetcars and trains on life in Seoul. Seoul is now a large bustling city with streets filled with over 2 million vehicles and a 200-kilometer-long subway carrying millions of passengers to their various destinations. But the city 100 years ago was quite a different place. It was quiet and peaceful, with rickshaws and cattle-drawn carts on the streets. Streetcars and trains were launched as the first public transportation means in Seoul. While the palanquin had once served as an adequate vehicle used by literati to boost their wealth and high social status, it was far from convenient and eventually drowned under the waves of modern civilization. The steamboat was introduced to Korea for the first time in 1888. Samsan Company, which was founded by a Korean, purchased 2 steamboats and launched them on the waterway between Incheon and Mapo. The next year, the Germany-based Sechang Company and the US-based Townsend Company also sailed steamships. In 1892, China launched the 100-ton Hanyang ship. In 1900, Yongsan Yolhwang Company was established to sail steamships on a regular basis. Sailboats existed until the 1930s as well, and ports by the Hangang River such as Mapo were always busy with people. The rickshaw was a common land transportation means for Japanese people. After the Sino-Japanese War, the number of rickshaws in Seoul increased so rapidly that in 1908, the Metropolitan Police Board, Gyeongbucheong, had to announce regulations on the rickshaw business. Drastic changes in public transportation in Seoul started in 1899, when streetcars began to run in the city. Streetcars were operated for the first time on the pretext of providing King Gojong with transport for his visit to Hongneung, where Queen Min was buried. The emergence of streetcars dramatically changed life in Seoul. For one, all the temporary houses near Jongno were removed for laying the railroad. Hansong Electric Company, founded jointly by the Korean government and an American named Henry Colbrand, laid a single track stretching from Sodaemun to Chongyangni via Jongno and Dongdaemun, 8.1 kilometers. At first, the streetcars that ran on this line included 8 40-seat open cars, 8.7 meters in length and 2.5 meters in width, and 1 car for royal use. The tickets were classified into 2 classes. Since there was no designated stops, passengers can get on and off any place they wished. Seoul was the second city to operate streetcars in Asia, after Kyoto. Streetcars were a popular new urban means of transportation, as they were fast and convenient. Japan took complete control over streetcar operation. A company owned by Japanese shareholders gained control of the streetcar business in 1909, and Gyeongsong Electric Company took it over in 1915. Japan renamed Seoul Gyeongsong in 1910 and extended the streetcar line to 22.2 kilometers to cover Mapo and Namyeongdong. As the population of Gyeongsong increased rapidly with the influx of Japanese people, Japan extended the streetcar line even further to 30.9 kilometers to cover Wangqingni, Ulchiro, and Anguk-dong, and replaced the existing cars with 75-seat box-type ones that could carry twice as many passengers. The electricity poles erected along the streetcar line in Jongno changed the landscape of Seoul. When the streetcar first started operating, passengers can get on and off any place they wanted. Later, streetcar stops were designated at certain places. The introduction of streetcars allowed Seoul citizens to familiarize themselves with modern etiquette and the egalitarian way of living as men and women sat side by side in cars adorned in bright colors. The opening of the railroad between Noryangjin and Jeonmu-po on September 18, 1899, signaled the breakdown of the traditional transportation system. The railroad replaced water corridors as the main transportation route that connected Seoul to local regions. Completed in 1900, the Hangang River Railway Bridge made Seoul readily accessible even from Japan. Furthermore, the launch of the Seoul-Incheon line and the Seoul-Busan line linked Seoul directly to local regions. However, the laying of railroads was undertaken by Japan from the beginning to further its aggressive aims and interests as a colonial power. The rail lines stretching in all directions with Seoul in the center were headed to ports or border cities as their final stops, which means that they were intended to connect Japan to Manchuria in a beeline. The nationwide railroad network was built in a radial design with Seoul in the center in the time of Japanese rule, and was expanded further to the mountainous area by the end of the 1930s. Japan attempted to double-track some of the rail lines, including the Seoul-Busan line and the Seoul-Shinjuku line, when a U.S. submarine attacked Japan and hit its marine transport hard at the end of the Pacific War. However, the construction project was not completed due to the shortage of building materials, and the railroads were left deserted. Furthermore, Seoul had yet to wait several decades more to see the commercialization of motor vehicles as an alternative transportation means. Thanks to the operation of streetcars and trains, it took only 2 hours to travel between Seoul and Incheon, a trip that used to take 1 whole day, and only a day to journey from Seoul to Busan, which used to take some 15 days. Overall, all distant regions were now accessible by train. The modern facilities introduced during Japanese rule, including electricity, streetcars, trains, and the telephone, contributed to modernizing Korea. However, it must be remembered that the purpose of their introduction was never to benefit Korea itself, but for furthering the interests of Japan as the colonizer. Thus, the Korean people could not welcome them without reservation, often burning streetcars and overturning trains in protest of the brutalities they had suffered under Japanese rule. So when modern civilization infiltrated the lives of Seoul citizens, it carried with it pain and resistance.